Hello mateys. Well, first off, check it. Look, I turned all my favorite books facing outwards. And if you're wondering where Eldest is, do not worry. My friend, he is right there. What is up, you guys? It's me, your girl, your Casey. How you doing? So, let's talk about ladies.
We're reliable with the ladies!
So, 2020 happened. I read some books. I read some good books. I read some bad books. In those books, there were good ladies and there were bad ladies. And now we are here to talk about the best and the worst ladies of 2020. Those ladies who stand for the ingenuity and boldness of womankind. And those girls that just want to whack on the head. Just see if it's hollow like a melon or something like that. We're going to start with the fifth best, then the fifth worst, fourth best, fourth worst. Up we go until we get to number one. And so the fifth best character, who is of the female variety of 2020, happens to be Miss Juliette from the Shatter Me series. I am actually very surprised that I like this girl. Shatter Me is a very basic dystopian novel to me. It's YA. I was not that fond of the world building in the book, but one of the better parts of the book was actually getting to know Juliette. Besides, of course, meeting Warner, the hot boy. In this dystopian world where people have these mutant abilities that, the government is trying to snuff out, Juliette has the power of lethal touch. She touches you, it's lethal. You're gonna perish. Painfully. And I'll be there laughing at you for being dumb for letting you touch her. And so her parents are all freaking out our daughter. She crazy. She ain't crazy, but they lock her up in an asylum anyways for almost a year. And our girl Juliette, in her solitude, she does kind of start to go crazy. And that's part of what I liked about this book, just like the formatting of it. Juliette's character really bleeds out through the writing of this book. If you can see it, you can see these strike throughs in the book because it's Juliette's thoughts. It's first person, so the internal monologuing is her thoughts. And those little strike throughs just represent her trying to repress some of her thoughts that she doesn't want to confront. You also get chapters that start off like this that just say, I am not insane, I am not insane, I am not insane, I am not insane. She is probably insane, she is insane. And it really, for me, it really sunk in just how much she is struggling with her power, with her isolation, and also just normal stimuli that wouldn't mean much to us, but is mind-blowing to her. The book really portrayed the descent of someone's sanity, and I like that. Juliette herself is brave and noble and sweet and highly enjoyable, and she's not that outstanding, so you can slide your own personality into her. So when she and the Warner stuff happened, you can pretend it's you and Warner. That's what I did. So just because of most of the way she was written, I really enjoyed Juliette as a protagonist. Partnered with a good inventive format for the book, she's one of the very few, very rare YA protagonists that I like. And now we're going to dive into some fantasy with my fifth worst female character of 2020. That would be Miss Shaylin from Way of Kings, Words of Radiance, Oathbringer, the Stormlight Archive. Okay, me and this girl have a rocky history. I like her. She just aggravates me sometimes. Now, the first book in this series is Way of Kings. We're with our man Kaladin. Favorite guy probably ever. I love him. And he's going through heck right now. He was sold as a slave and he's put in the worst position ever in the army as a bridgeman. So his point of views, his chapters are amazing, but they're interrupted by whatever Shaylin is doing across the globe. I did not like her then just because she was taking me away from Kaladin. Same issue with Dalinar to me. I did not like him because he was taking me away from Kaladin. However, I love Dalinar. But of course, as I got deeper and deeper into the book and her plot started coming together, I liked her. I loved her obsession with drawing and all that. And oh my gosh, she got so good in Words of Radiance. I loved everything she was doing. We learned so much about the awful past she has been suppressing. She's literally, if I don't think about it, it does not exist. I will not think about it, but she's being forced to think about it. And her past is just revealed, and she kind of overcomes it with the help of a friend named Tarn. Although it's kind of a resentful kind of help. A help that gives her a kind of hatred fuel off of. At least that's how I thought Words of Radiance ended. So I went from not liking her to now really liking her and thinking her character arc went so well in Words of Radiance. Oathbringer is where I now hate her because to me, all that character built up in the second book was just demolished in book 3. She went from someone who has confronted her past into someone who was honestly just kind of annoying. The responsibilities of her duties are just piling on top of her. She doesn't think people can rely on her because she doesn't think she's good enough to be put in that position. And so she starts to forge different identities for herself in order to hey, if I'm not me, Shaylin, and if I'm someone else, then I won't have any of Shaylin's weaknesses. But to me, this little issue of hers came out of nowhere. Because I thought we were doing super good after words of radiance. Like, I remember reading like part 1 and how she's like, oh, I can't do this. I need my super alter ego to handle this problem for me. And I'm like, weird. Where did this come out of? And I made a video. It was an Oathbringer review. And I remember this one guy commented and he's like, oh my gosh, you just did not understand. Shaylin has dissociative identity disorder. You don't understand what she's going through. I know. My problem with it is not her having DID. The problem is I didn't think it was introduced well. Like, I feel like her juggling multiple personalities in order to like cope with some stuff was just dropped into the plot. These 2 thriller books right here, I do not like because, like Oathbringer, they dropped in mental illness out of nowhere. I did not think it was good rep for it. Shaylin's arc was definitely much better than what happened in those 2 thriller books. But during Oathbringer, the whole thing kind of like unspooled her character for me. And I just lost interest in her completely. A lot of her internal monologuing just became kind of a whine to me. I even lost like interest in her relationship with another guy in the book, which was something I was loving in the second book. And I love this girl, but I just don't think she was done well in Oathbringer. Kind of like a mishandling scenario here. But on the topic of Brandon Sanderson, we are gonna go to my 4th favorite female character, and it is Spinza from Skyward. Spinza, every time I think of her, I think of this Pokemon Spinda. Spinza. Her call sign is Spinza. Both have like over-the-top personalities that just makes your head go Spinda. Spinda is a wannabe pilot. Generations ago, her ancestors were on a ship out in outer space. They were forced to crash land on a planet, and now, over the generations, they've just been like building a society there. But they can't really escape the planet because above them on the surface of the planet, they're constantly being attacked by aliens. So they live under the planet. The only way they can fight these aliens is through, becoming pilots, going to an academy, learning how to pilot a ship. Spinza wants to do this so bad. However, her father, who was a pilot before her, did this ultimate act of cowardice, and his own teammates shot him out of the sky. So now Spinza is flagged as a traitor's daughter, and so her chances of getting into the academy are super slim. I love Spinza because she reminds me of me. She's the one who walks around like she's got something to prove. I get you, girl. And I lost count of all the time she stood up on a chair and just leaned over on top of someone and just said, "I will slice off your hamstrings, boy." I dig that. Look at me, I'm tall. She challenged people to fights to the death, and I love that. I think we should bring dueling back. 10 paces, like in Hamilton. Spinza also had a hilarious companion and an adorable little slug pet. And though I wasn't really interested in her love relationship going on, she herself and the adventure she was going through were pretty dope. And the 4th worst character, just for making me so annoyed, made me want to pinch a little head off. I do not know how to pronounce this name. Taryn. Tarn. I always pronounce it as Tarn in my head. Yeah, let's go with it. It doesn't sound pretty, but we're gonna call her Tarn. It's Tarn from The Cruel Prince. The Cruel Prince is about a girl, a human girl. Her name is Jude. Jude, her twin sister Tarn, and their older half-sister Vivi, who is an elf, were taken away by a redcap. Redcap, I think his name was Maddox. I love Maddox. Maddox was originally married to Vivi's mom, but then while Vivi's mom was still pregnant with Vivi, she escaped back to the human world, found a new husband, had Vivi, then she and the new human husband had the twins. And so Maddox's been looking for his wife and his runaway baby for all this time. So he finds them, he walks into the house, and he's like, "Hey, wifey, what's up?" And wifey's like, "I will not live with you anymore, you fairy swine." And Maddox's like, "I'm gonna kill you, fool." And he kills her. And the human dude, too. And so he looks at these twins and his daughter. He's like, "Well, looks like I'm a father again of 3. And he takes the kids and he goes back to the fairy world. And so June, she's surprisingly kind of okay with that because she likes the fairy world. She wants to become a knight. But it's kind of hard to do when you're a human and everybody looks down on you. Jude is fine. She's okay. She's nothing really special, but she's serviceable. However, Tarn, her twin sister, annoys me. I just remember how stupid this woman was. And just how many times she, oh my gosh, I can't talk about this without spoilers. But let's just say, sisterly bonds, who needs those? When there's a man on the line. She manages to be both incompetent and kind of useless, but also sneaky and manipulative. How does this work? I don't understand. I mean, she was at her worst in book 1, and at book 2, I'm just I'm watching you. And at book 3, I'm like, who hasn't cut her head off yet and why? Just every time I saw it, I just wanted to, nyeh. closer, put your neck right here. The third best female character of 2020 is the Windspren, the Honor Spren, Syl from Words of Radiance, Way of Kings, Oathbringer, all that Brandison magic. Why is she awesome? Because she saved Kaladin from, killing himself. You need more than that. We gotta keep Kaladin alive, y'all. I need my boy. She's also just funny, and she zooms around a lot. I like her. The third worst character of 2020, who is of the womanhood. It is a chick named Yin from the 100,000 Kingdom book, or more commonly known as the Inheritance trilogy. I read this series only because, well, you guys voted for it, but also because the inheritance cycle. That's kind of a big deal with me. And I was like, who dares try to take the name of inheritance away from my boys? And yeah, so I read the series, all 3 books and a short story. It was like, but Yin is the Duchess of this little impoverished kingdom of mid 100,000. She gets summoned to the big emperor guy's castle. Big emperor guy is like, hey, I'm actually your granddad and you're going to live at the castle from now on. Yin is like, oh, I don't want to, but I can't say no because Mr. Emperor guy might blow up my house. Because I'm just a little tiny nation. He's Mr. Emperor guy of 100,000 kingdoms. Also, he has an army of gods at his command. I don't stand a chance. I also think he murdered my mom. So we have questions to answer. So, that kind of sounds cool. We're gonna walk around this castle. We're gonna find out some dark secrets. We're gonna hang out with some sexy gods. However, the book is literally just Yin walking around, picking up clues, introducing herself to gods, saying hello there. Please don't kill me. Also, the way this book was written, something fast-paced and actiony would be happening, but then would be interrupted by Yin's headspace, and she'd be like, oh wait, before I continue, I'm not paraphrasing, I'm not lying, this is literally what happened. A big revelation was going on, high-paced, fast action, then Yin comes out of the action. She's like, hold on, I have to tell you one thing before we continue with the present action. Then we have a flashback to a day before, to some really just chill scene, and I'm like, hey, what happened to the pacing? She managed to keep interrupting the story. The story's about her, but she kept interrupting herself. Don't know how to deal with this. Also, I think she slept with her cousin. Alright, and the duo of chicks we have next for the second best female characters of 2020, it is Victra and Mustang from the Red Rising trilogy. I was so sketched out by these girls. I'm like, one of you is gonna kill my bro Darrow, aren't you? These were some good girls, okay? They were fighty, they were capable, they were funny too. I really liked Victra. That girl survived things that she should not have survived. And I think of all the girls of power and strength, these two are the strongest. I have no doubt these two could beat up the winners of the first place slot. Mustang is one of the competing foes in the ongoing trial Darrow, our protagonist, is competing in so he can be initiated into the Gold Society of Red Rising. So he's a red. He wants to get into the Gold Society because the golds are up here, the reds are down here. He wants to get up here to get some revenge and break down the government from the inside out. Victra, I honestly cannot remember if she was on a different team or if she was on the same team as Darrow. But whenever I think of her, I just think of a Wolverine. She's yeah, I love her. She's feisty. She becomes Darrow's most trusted lieutenant, and I love it. They were very capable, and I love how they always messed up my expectations. I did not know what to think when either of them were on the battlefield. I didn't know what to trust and what to not to trust because they have their own aspirations that go totally against Darrow's, but they all work together so well. My favorite thing about Red Rising is just the bonds, just how warm and amazing they could be, or how they can appear like that, but it's actually a whole big lie. You don't know who to trust in this book, but these two girls, they got your back. And the second worst female protagonist of 2020, that would be Kira from Just Sleep in a Sea of Stars. This is literally the best argument as to why this girl should probably even be in the first slot, but no, I have a special person for the first worst slot. So I was making my little list for the best and worst ladies of 2020, and I had Kira written down as number 2, and I read this list and I'm like, who is Kira? I forgot who she was. That's how forgettable, bland, and insipid this chick is. Oh my gosh, just a big YA cliche, helpless damsel, no personality. Gosh, for someone who's not really used to science fiction and is trying to get into it, To Sleep in a Sea of Stars was just an overwhelming disappointment and a big deterrent to the whole genre. But me just completely forgetting this girl's existence, that says more than I can actually say about how awful she was as a protagonist. Like, literally, she was just a vehicle to spout exposition to us. And just all that quirky humor that she tried to initiate and just everybody else in that book. Oh, it's just a big cringe show. Yuck. And now we'll get into the queens, the Yas queens of the 2020. It's another duo from the same series. One of the chicks who came riding in on a steed and saved the day. I was literally like, you know what? I didn't know what to think about you in the first book, but this second book, you're pretty cool, man. She's a kick-booty, independent lady, but with a heart for her husband and for his kingdom that she has inherited. It is Ketrikin of the Assassin's Apprentice series. Farseer trilogy, very good series, highly enjoyable. There's a big puppy in it, you should go read it. Ketrikin is it's not really called a princess, it's called a sacrifice. Her position is the sacrifice. The noble of sorts the people appoint to, like, be their representative and just, like, you know, you sacrifice for your people. So she kind of is the equivalent to a princess. She gets married off to Verity of the kingdom that our boy Fitz is living in. And so she comes to his kingdom and, you know, it's a kind of a culture shock. She went from doing everything for her people to being like kind of secluded in a tower because, oh, she's the queen in waiting now. You can't let her go out all by herself. She might get shot. We're in war times, people. But then, like, there's a bunch of crap happening in the kingdom. There's invaders and everything. And Ketrikin is not just gonna, like, sit there. She's like, listen, my husband's fighting out there. He's king. I'm queen. I can be fighting too. Even though she is pregnant at this point. I don't advise fighting armies when you're pregnant, but she goes out and does it anyways. The preggers lady gets on her steed and she just goes out and starts slashing people on a sword. Well, not on a sword. She's holding a sword and she's on a horse. And I'm just sitting back going like, I like you, kid. I like you. Like, this girl is principles incarnated. And the other girl who is tied with this is Patience, who, if you know our boy Fitz from the Farseer trilogy, he's the illegitimate son of Prince Chivalry. Prince Chivalry had a lady friend, and they had Fitz secretly. But then Chivalry went off and got married to Patience. And so when Fitz's whole existence is revealed, Chivalry is like, I'm retiring from princehood. No one look at me on my way out. Then he manages to get killed. And so Patience has no one, but she has this boy Fitz, who like, oh my gosh, you look like my husband. You could have been my son. And I'm like, oh baby, I'll be your daughter. I love you. She has a personality that's kind of like, she makes me itchy when she moves and talks. Like, she just has so much energy. But my favorite thing about her was when she first met Fitz, she looked at him and she's like, you want a puppy? He's like, yeah. So she just reaches over. She's like, here, have a puppy. It was so cute, and I loved her bond with Fitz and how she just wanted to make sure he was okay. Like, honestly, she was such a good mother figure for him. And she wasn't there much besides offering like advice and some nice little gossip every now and then. But she really warmed my heart. And I like to think that she made Fitz's hard life a little bit easier in the beginning. So those two girls made the Assassin's Apprentice trilogy so nice. However, we got the first worst, the loser lass. The gosh girl, what were you thinking by even existing? It's the worst female character of 2020. And her name is Emma from The Girl Before. I have one simple reason for hating her. Falsely accusing someone of sexual assault puts you on my crap list. And that's it, people. I hope you've enjoyed this list of charming or childish chicks, depending on what list you were looking forward to most. And it is time next week to wrap up this whole best and worst package with the best and worst villains of 2020. They're coming for you. And so guys, until next time, you know what to do. Stay ready, my friends.